Alison, thank you so much for taking this time to be on the podcast. I am really glad to have you here because I know that you are super experienced and you've worked with families and businesses, very similar to my background actually, and we'll get into all those types of things. And you've recently done a TED Talk. You are an author, so thank you so much for sharing all these insights.
Oh,
Um, but tell me a little bit more about yourself for people who are listening. Kind of tell me about your work.
yeah. So, firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm always grateful to be a guest on someone else's podcast. So, my background is nearly 30 years working alongside people, their minds, their behaviors, the things that get in the way. I've done
Mm,
that in a few guises, if you like. Was in the NHS for 24 years, working predominantly as a therapist or
mm,
a support worker to a specialty. So I specialised in drugs and alcohol for 5 years, and then domestic violence for 5 years, and then safeguarding. So I've always worked kind of at the heart of people and their problems.
mm,
But then 15 years ago, I trained in, well, it's more than that now actually, but I trained in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and different types of coaching. So that gave me the confidence to leave and set up on my own. And
mm,
that was 15 years ago. So that's my sort of story, sort of my personally, but running parallel with that is my own journey, my own self-development, which I'm always very happy to talk about, and then my work, which is either with individuals, with
mm,
teams, leaders,
mm.
and groups of people. So I can kind of, yeah, I enjoy working. I do enjoy working with groups. I mean, I love one-to-one as well, but I do enjoy working with
Mm.
groups because I think we learn so much more from one another.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so with you about group work. I feel really similar. So similar to you. I really enjoy individual work, but I think there's something about a group that offers that dynamic that's actually just really helpful to have all sides of the stories.
Yeah.
Um, Absolutely. And you also work with businesses, don't you? That's
Yeah, I do it now. When I left the NHS, I did used to just do a lot of one-to-one. And actually, I started to realize that all the things that I'd learned as a therapist and coach were so useful in the workplace.
yeah.
So I have developed over the years a program which I've called Leading with the Brain in Mind. So I bring a lot of the models and a lot of the tools that I learned
Mm,
and I teach them or I show them or I demonstrate them to businesses. So that could
mm,
be the exec team, that could be a team of managers,
yeah.
or it could be, wider than that. Because I genuinely think, and I know that you and I are very similarly trained, I genuinely think that if we understand
Mm,
more about the way that we're all wired,
yeah.
and then you start to understand a little bit more about yourself, then you can see that people are different and we've got a more flexibility to be able to have better
Yeah.
conversations, to be able to give feedback, all the things that people say they find difficult to do.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like the self-awareness being like at the heart of it all. And I know that you mentioned earlier about your own journey as a therapist and also as a business person,
Yeah,
because I truly believe now that actually just being in business is like one of the best personal growth journeys that we could really go on.
I
Um,
totally agree. I totally agree with that. I mean, I think if you're open to being aware and switching on to things
mm,
that, whatever's going on internally or what the result was and did it work or not and what can you learn from it. I mean, I genuinely say that 80% of changing anything is self-awareness.
mm,
And
mm,
that's just my
yeah,
number. It's not a scientific thing.
sure.
But I genuinely think that if we are able to notice
Mm,
ourselves, notice what's going on, notice the impact that someone else has had on you, or vice versa, you're having on them, then you can really start to turn up
mm,
the changes.
yeah. And I know that you've also done your TED Talk,
Yes.
and I know you talked about age and generations a lot. And this is a subject that really comes up in my work, and also for myself as a younger professional. People talk about my age all the time, like more than I care about it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? So, say more about your TED Talk and how that relates to your work, because I know it is super related.
Well, one of the things that I think we all need to be paying attention to is that we're all different. People will often say to me, "Oh, yeah, yeah, of course, I've got my teams and they're different, and there might be different age, there might be different backgrounds, there might be different all sorts of differences." But
Mm,
when the pressure's on, everybody seems to forget about the differences in any shape. So whether that's
mm,
neurodiversity differences, whether that's
right.
cultural differences, whatever it is, we
Yeah,
seem to forget and we seem to sort of all go for the
yeah.
natural position is however you show up. So
Mm,
default is how you show up.
mm,
So I think we do talk a lot in businesses about that everyone's different and things. But one of the things that I noticed is people are making judgments like you've just described
mm,
or making assumptions based on age.
mm,
So they are not leaning into the person and what they might bring to the table.
mm,
They're just
mm,
saying, oh, she doesn't know anything. She's only young.
mm,
Or, oh, he's a bit old stuck in his ways. What does he know?
mm.
And really, when we do that, we are missing out on opportunities and possibilities.
Right.
So, with a TED Talk, you have to come up with a topic that A, they'll accept, and B, that is a little bit different to what other people are talking about. And I genuinely don't think we're talking enough about age. And I think with the generations coming into the workplace,
Mm,
as because of tech and because of probably the pandemic and a few other things,
mm,
people are much more different. I mean, every generation. I
right.
mean, at the beginning of my TED talk, I talk about when I was 19 and how
Yeah.
a boss just sort of looked at my work and was like, what's that?
Gosh. Yeah.
But I think when I was 19, you did what you were told. You didn't ever
Mm,
question it. You didn't have a voice. You didn't. There just wasn't any of that. I mean, this is like a long time ago. So for me, we need to be more mindful of
mm,
writing people off because the younger generation do
mm.
have, rightly so,
No.
a voice.
Yeah.
I didn't have one when I was younger, but we should have done, but we
Mm,
didn't. But we have now.
yeah.
Wisdom is not measured in years. You can be really young and have amazing ideas, and
Super.
a business, if they tap into that,
Yeah.
what could happen if they really listened? But
Yeah.
equally, young people sometimes are doing that sort of writing the older generation off and sort of saying, "Oh, you don't
Yeah.
know anything about,
Oh,
modern days," and
yeah.
which they don't, because we will all have an understanding based on when we
Mm,
were born and,
right.
what was going on when
Yeah.
we were born.
Yeah.
The boomers came out the back of, were born at the
Mm,
end of World War II. So there were things that were going on that's made them the way they are.
mm,
So we
mm.
do have habits and traits
Yeah.
and things because
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
But that isn't the only thing.
Yeah.
Because all boomers are not the same, all Gen X are
No.
not the same, all millennials are not the
Absolutely.
same. And that's what I wanted to do is just get us to just notice if you're doing that thing where you're just too
Mm,
quick to make a judgment
mm.
based on age.
Right.
Be curious,
Yeah.
ask questions. Just,
Yeah.
instead of that, oh, it must be a gen. As soon as there's a problem,
Right.
people are potentially likely to say,
Panicking.
"Oh, it's just a generational thing. We don't know
Yeah.
how to communicate with one another." Well,
Yeah.
that isn't an answer, and it
Yeah.
really won't be an answer in business because you'll be missing out and wasting a lot of time.
Yeah. Definitely. It's so true. Like I have made that error so many times too of saying for older folks like it's just a generational thing and it is almost used as like okay and that means the conversation can end here.
Yeah.
Like it's an excuse.
Yes.
Um family businesses, I know you are aware, really struggle with this kind of topic of different ages, different generations coming up into the business and
Yeah.
just stereotypes. How will you support your clients and your businesses to go through that transition of really changing and opening their perspectives?
Well, I think it's a cultural thing really, is to find mechanisms within the organization, and that starts from the leadership team right through is how are you going to hear each other? How are you going to set
Mm.
up a
Mm.
way that people can share ideas,
Right.
who can bring things forward into
Mm.
the workplace rather than you hear a lot
Mm.
is, oh no, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
And again, if a business is super successful and they've always done it in a certain way, then there is a lot to be said about, well, maybe that is the way to do it. But
Yeah.
what if
Yeah.
it's not?
Yeah.
What if things have moved on and
Right.
actually the business needs to move on
Yeah.
with the times, if you like?
Yeah.
So there has got to be that mixture of leaning into the expertise and the wisdom that's been there for a long time, and then how
Mm.
do you filter that through? Because it's
Mm.
not safe to keep all that
Mm.
with that
Right.
owner or that family, the person who maybe set it all up,
Yeah.
keeping that's no good. But equally, what ideas do these people have? So for me, it feels like you've got
Mm.
to almost think about how are you going to open that up? Because
Yeah.
one of the things I often hear people say is, we haven't got time. We haven't
Mm.
got time for that.
Oh yeah.
That new thing that you're asking us to put in place. We haven't got
Yeah.
time, to have meetings around ideas.
Yeah.
But what if something unbelievably amazing came out of that
Uh-huh.
meeting that transformed your business or that gave you something amazing? And I think that's the bit to be
Yeah.
mindful and to be curious about.
Yeah. Defo. I love it how you say like unbelievably amazing because
But what if it could?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What if
Absolutely.
something just that really, really changed your business
Yeah.
came from being more open to diversity of all types?
Mm.
We could talk about neurodiversity and the ideas and the
Yeah.
wisdom and things that come from people who have,
Mm.
a different way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
Again, I've seen some absolutely spectacular examples of people being allowed to share their idea, and it
Mm.
might have felt a bit different, but oh wow, it's made it
Yeah.
really, it's been taken on. So
Yeah.
I'm always really curious about that
Yeah. Yeah.
energy that comes with the differences and what if and
Right.
what could happen if we could. And I think sometimes it is. It's a mechanism for that.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, what should we have an ideas box or an area where people put post-it notes off of things,
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
Again, it's whatever people feel, but the most important thing is that things are followed through. So if
Mm.
somebody does share an idea, somebody
Mm.
needs to
Right.
have a look at it with them. And if it's a no, then
Mm.
have that
Mm.
explained.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a conversation. It's too, I hear particularly team members sort of say, "Oh, and I've got all these ideas, but no one's interested."
Mm.
And
Right.
that can be quite stifling for some people. And I genuinely think that's for
Yeah.
some people, not just in any generation,
Yeah.
but younger people have got great ideas and they need to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I think like spoken like a true therapist and a coach of being able to ask the questions of like what if it were different and what would happen if dot dot dot, but also to be able to create that space that people get to speak and explore and kind of share what might have been very difficult and something brand new. So I think that the skills that you have are like absolutely appropriate to be able to do these things. And I know you and I have really similar training,
Yes.
but absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, I think you're right that you raise a good point actually. Um, it is sometimes difficult to be able to create the space and to have these type of conversations, just
mm,
like having difficult conversations.
yeah,
People often say, I don't know how to do that. So they'll either avoid it or they'll
yeah,
do it and it'll be really messy.
yeah,
So, I think it
yeah,
is just having the confidence to to
mm,
create the space and get really curious about what
mm,
I always observe and knowing you'll be the same, knowing humans as they are, you
mm.
give somebody an opportunity to go with their idea.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness me, they will come up with a load more.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like you're opening a tap with them,
yeah,
that if they're that sort, I mean, any business needs some people who just come in, do the job and go home.
yeah,
but
Yeah.
there'll also be loads of people in businesses who've got
Yeah.
absolutely
So much.
fantastic ideas.
Yeah.
And somehow the motivation that comes if you allow them
Yeah.
to almost wake those up,
Yeah.
you will have somebody who's going the extra mile for you, who's turning up every day,
Mm,
who's
mm,
showing so much more
mm.
potential
Yeah.
because, and that can, and again, that isn't just the younger generation, it's leaning into the wisdom,
Right.
and also the traits of each generation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true about like what people can do when they've got that space to, I guess, be creative, as we speak about now, but also when people are being heard. Because it's something that I get asked all the time is like, Lily, you do what? Like you have difficult conversations with families, which is difficult, but then also mixing business in that. Like
Yeah.
when I would share I support family businesses, literally folks would go, didn't you just grab the most two challenging things and decide to put them together? Like, why have you done that? And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And it is a challenge. But I think when folks have that space and it is agreed that this will be a space that we are going to have difficult conversations, but we're going to do it with respect and honesty and
True.
compassion, then it's amazing how people almost just instantly just relax. And it's like being heard is the secret ingredient and how quickly things can change.
Yeah.
Have you found something very similar? No doubt.
Yeah, I think so. I think people often make up in their heads how difficult something's going to be, and they build it up and
Mm,
build it up and build it up and make it. And
yeah.
we can see this in all sorts of areas of our lives where people dread something and then actually it's never as bad as you think. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes we get ourselves, when you ask people what's holding you back from having that difficult conversation, most people say, I
Yeah.
don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah.
So we
Totally.
have an innate desire to not upset each other, but
Mm,
not
mm,
saying things actually
mm.
can be more
Yeah.
devastating than saying things.
Yeah.
But the key thing is saying them well.
Yeah.
And that's where,
Right.
people like you and I can help people be able to say
Mm,
things well.
yeah.
I like to bring the neuroscience in so that you can understand how
Mm,
you can minimize the impact. We can
mm.
never cater for
Right.
how people will take it.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
say same thing to three people and they'll all interpret it slightly
Yeah.
differently. So
Yeah.
we have got that to navigate.
Yeah.
But if you really think about trying to minimize the impact that it's going to have on that emotional part of the brain, which is obviously the first bit that gets involved,
Mm,
then we can usually have people in the room,
yeah.
and listening. And it can often be, which is my point to this little piece, is
Yeah.
it's often not as bad as you thought it was going to be. And
Mm,
actually, it's such a
yeah.
relief when
Yeah.
you've had that conversation, and
Yeah.
and it might not be as bad as you thought
Yeah, yeah,
quite
yeah,
often.
totally, totally, totally. I often have people leave my sessions like with a smile, feeling good, and you're like, yeah, no harm done. We're all still okay. Everyone's all right. I wonder if there is a message that you would have for families in business who are working in there, perhaps a part of the family and a part of the business. What message would you send to these folks?
I think it's probably to try and work out how, and this possibly is a conversation between the sort of family members or the exec team if they're not family, of how
Mm,
you're going to navigate the personal relationships that you've got with people and the professional relationships you've got. Because
mm.
if they're going to be merged to a
Yeah,
point. Of
yeah,
course they are,
yeah.
because you are one person. But I think if they're not managed well,
Hmm.
how you might speak to your, if it was husband and wife, for example, how you might speak to them privately and then how
Mm.
you might speak to them in front of others is not the same thing. And I think I mean, it sounds so obvious,
No.
but I do think that there's a piece to be had about working out what will it look like
Yeah.
when we're being professional, and
Mm.
then also, but equally,
Yeah.
conversely, they need private time where they're
Mm.
not talking about their business, and they do need to be able to go and be mother
Mm.
and daughter or whatever the relationship is and have that. So I think for me there's something around
Yeah.
separating times while they'll merge together at certain times,
Yeah.
separating. Is that what sort of things
Mm.
do you tend to
Yeah.
say?
Something very, very similar. And I think there is a lot to be said about the separation, even though I'm really glad that you speak to people still being the same people. Like we cannot separate if it's a husband and wife, the marriage, private relationship from business partners. And sometimes I think, why would you? Because there is also a real strength in also being family and also in business. So I don't believe it's always necessary or even possible just to sever.
No.
But then different realms and different, I like to call them rooms, but that's quite a
Yeah.
technical word for it actually, but different rooms for this is the family room, that's the owner room and the management room or different spaces like that with
Yeah.
time and places.
Yeah.
But yeah, something very similar actually.
Yeah, good.
Um,
Yeah, and I think you're right. You can't avoid it completely because you are, and like you say, there's huge strengths. And sometimes, family do say it as it is,
mm, mm,
which, when we talk earlier about people avoiding having difficult conversations, I mean,
yeah,
sometimes I've seen families where
yeah,
they literally have a big screaming match,
yeah,
in front of
yeah. People, yeah,
they're in front of people. And again, that while they're obviously getting stuff off their chest and things,
mm,
again, it has to be done in a way that is feels
mm,
right to the business and to others,
yeah,
because there could be and there may be
mm,
conversely the impact it's having on if they've
mm,
got staff who are not
yeah,
family members, what are they thinking,
yeah,
feeling? Are they worried that there's going to be a kick-off all the time? Or,
yeah.
again, it's for me, it's like it is having it so that everybody feels safe. And I think that there's all sorts of components to that.
To safety. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with people being family, naturally, if you've got other members of a team, that they are going to have
Mm,
times where they don't feel like they know everything because they won't.
mm,
But again, I'm always sort of encouraging people to think about the impact that has.
right.
Yes, of course, if you're a member of staff, you are not going to know everything that a senior leadership team knows.
Yeah, yeah.
Fact. But when there is things going on and
Mm,
people start to get uncomfortable and start to fear
mm,
that something's
mm,
happening and they don't know what it is,
mm.
I'm always encouraging businesses to try and minimize the impact of that because it
The
can
impact.
become really quite toxic and it can become
Yeah.
where people I call them like toxic conversations at the photocopier. People are like, oh, what's going
Mm,
on, is there something's
right.
going, and they get all nervous and they because
Yeah,
people that's what humans do. So
yeah.
to me it's about how you communicate to
Mm,
everyone that you might not know everything but
mm,
be rest assured or whatever it is that needs to be said,
mm.
not saying anything
Right.
and leaving people to be very nervous and then they get very suspicious. Oh, the family seem to all know what's going on, but we
Right.
don't.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that's again, there's a respect that they will know things that they
right.
don't need to know, but equally, how
Yeah,
do you navigate? Because people
right.
will feel threatened,
Yeah.
even though there might not be any reason to be threatened.
No,
But
sure, sure. But I guess if there is a clique or a clique and the family has become exclusive, then non-family members of staff are going to feel
yeah,
threatened or they don't understand. There's no transparency. Um, Absolutely. I know in other conversations we've had about the stories of who these people are. Tell me more about that because I know that you have lots about that, don't you? About the
about
stories.
about stories about family businesses that starting off as really small in back bedrooms type of thing. Is that what?
Um, yes, yes. I remember one time we were talking about the stories of who these people are, almost sharing it. So there is not a wall around the family.
Yeah. Well, I think in any business, and I think in family businesses particularly, but in any business, all the members of the whole team need to understand where this business has come from,
Mm,
how is it grown?
Yeah.
Was it in a back bedroom with these two f
Right.
family members?
Yeah.
And then it's grown and it's grown and it's now got 40 people. And, I
Mm.
think that story, that narrative, it helps people sort of attach themselves and think, wow, this is
It's
going
real.
somewhere. This is got this, this is exciting because I think we all
Yeah.
love to hear those stories of
Yeah.
a small firm that, literally started with somebody's
Yeah.
idea and then it's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown.
Yeah.
And I think in my sort of observations, I think when people understand where it's come from and then where it's going.
Mm.
So again,
Mm.
the story a bit about where it's going, okay, respecting that you might not be able to tell them everything, but where is it going? And then each
Mm.
person then in one-to-ones or PDPs or appraisals or whatever goes on, people can then attach themselves to that
Mm.
growth and that story and that narrative.
Yeah.
And then people will want to go the extra mile again. They'll want to
Yeah.
do something because we love to be part of things that are
Mm.
going
Mm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I think when people talk about that, it's, again, sometimes I ask that question if do you all your staff, if I went round and asked everybody, do
Mm.
all your staff know where this business has come from?
Yeah.
And
You
if
asked.
the answer is a no, then
Yeah.
you're missing a trick because
Mm.
people will find that really interesting,
Yeah.
particularly if it has been something that's grown,
Yeah. Yeah.
existentially.
Yes, yeah. I think stories are just incredible, so exciting, and I really like how you talk about that impact of or the outcome of then folks get excited.
Yeah,
Like they want to be a part of something and they need to know what they're a part of in order to have that oomph, that excitement.
yeah.
You will literally go around and ask people like, do you know this story? Or
Well, sometimes I might ask the owners or the family if they believe that other people know. So I'm basically asking them, have they shared that story? Is it on their website?
yeah.
Is there a story on the website that other people can
Mm,
read? Do they talk about it?
mm, mm.
Because, yeah, as you said, stories are so powerful. And people often say, how do we get people to be more engaged? And then they think that there's this big mystery, this big
Yeah,
thing that you
yeah.
have to do. And actually, let people know how this business has
What's going
grown.
on? Yeah.
And then they could be like, oh, okay,
Check
this
it
is
out.
exciting. And then I want to be part of that too. And then
Yeah,
they will show up more. So
yeah.
sometimes, again, when you look at the way that humans behave, we are quite selfish. We do want to know, how does this matter? How do I fit in here? What is it that
Mm,
is for
mm.
me?
What's
Because that's the way humans are wired.
yeah.
But you can feed that as a business owner. You can
Mm,
feed their need to know and their
mm,
want to be part of something. And I
mm,
think that's where when you look at businesses that are doing exceptionally well, often what is happening is that connection with people. It's that
mm. Yeah,
storytelling. It's the
yeah.
wow, we can go somewhere here and
Yeah.
get involved. And I love to see it when you can see
Well,
all sorts of people. I mean, there's that saying, isn't there? I don't know the exact details, but there is a story that says some American president, I think, was visiting NASA,
ah,
and he ask somebody in the corridor, what's your role? And he said, oh,
yeah,
we get people on the moon,
yeah.
and he was the
Exciting.
cleaner or something. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
exactly remember the detail, but
Mm,
but that story still demonstrates that
mm,
everybody
yeah.
gets to hear and know how
Mm,
we're making
mm,
this thing.
yeah,
Because money can bring out the worst in
yeah,
people.
yeah,
If somebody feels that they are just lining the pockets of somebody,
yeah, yeah.
that again, you've got to be able to navigate that so that people
Mm,
don't feel like that.
yeah.
Because again, everyone knows that a business owner is probably going to take more than
Sure.
the majority, normal. But how are you going to navigate that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think story time at school was probably the only time that I tuned in. Like,
Yeah.
You know? But it is, it's absolutely true. And I think I get really excited to know about people's stories. And I know that you're the same because that's maybe one of the reasons why we do what we do, to lean into what's interesting.
Yeah,
And I think family businesses are one crowd who do not share their story, because I think there is so much stigma and taboo about mixing family and business that we think that that is a terrible idea, even though it is not. So people
no.
don't take ownership over the fact that they have done the thing that everybody tells them not to do. So sharing the stories, I think, is so important. Um, is there any kind of like nugget of wisdom or like piece of advice or almost a gift almost that you would give to family businesses? What would this be?
Mm. I mean, obviously, we've talked already about having some level of separation. Um,
Mm,
But something that you said there about if there's a stigma attached to it, and people say don't do it, and you're mad to work with your family and things. For me, it's owning it, own what you've chosen to do. If you
mm,
are constantly worried about other people and what they would say, that's up to them. If they've
mm,
got a view on it, maybe it's just because they don't have a great relationship with their family member and couldn't imagine going into business with them.
yeah.
But actually, just
Mm,
own your decisions and
mm.
actually, smash it out the park, basically.
Go for it. Yeah.
You don't have to prove, not quite to prove them wrong, but I think when people in every walk of our lives, when we are constantly talking about, gosh, what will they think? Oh, I don't
Mm,
know whether I should do that because
mm,
we're just missing
mm,
out, really. We
mm,
just need to go for it and stay. So I think if that is a trait that you hear,
mm.
I haven't
Yes.
heard that one as much as you do, but I know you predominantly focus on family businesses, whereas I've got a mixture. But I
Mm,
think if that's a thing, that there's
mm,
this sort of fear and a myth that you
mm.
shouldn't do it. If you're doing it and it's going well,
Right.
rock it.
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah. Because it does work. It so works as a mix, family and business. I mean, two very strong bonds coming together. Like, I love it. Take
Yeah.
ownership of that.
I think so. I think just not worrying about what if you think somebody's got a view on it, that's their view, which I
Mm.
would say that for any view of someone
Anybody.
else, it's their view. They're
Yeah.
entitled to it, but it doesn't mean to say it's for you
Yeah.
to listen to or take heed of. It's just something
Yeah.
that's in your back in your mind. And yeah, really own your
Mm.
decision. And then maybe that's you step into that space a bit more. And
Mm.
but I do think what we talked about before though is having some
Mm.
way. And I know, and I've seen it, I mean, I've
Mm.
been in exec teams where, you've got a dad and a daughter, and they're both very senior and,
Yeah.
they are very professional with each
Yeah.
other. But I
Yeah.
do think there is still, maybe that's a skill to learn how to do that
Right. How
because,
to manage it.
to just go from being
Yeah.
a mum and a or a dad and a daughter, for example, and then the next minute, or two brothers or something, the next minute you're trying to navigate
Yeah.
some serious things. I do think
Yeah.
there's space and time needs to be
Mm.
created to work out,
Mm.
okay, where does the line go?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then how do we then, and I think anybody who owns their own business, you and me included, how do we separate some time off? Because
Mm.
it is different to
Mm.
being employed.
Mm.
You do, it's your business, so you choose to do things on a Sunday.
Um, It is Sunday, by the way, for people. Listen, we work on Sundays.
Our diaries were so busy, we had to do this. But we can choose to do that, can't we? And it might be because last week I was at a nice event last Tuesday, so
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
we can choose to do. But of
Mm,
course, the other side of that is that everybody who is employed in your firm
mm,
may not do
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
for me, it's that expectations piece as well. You know,
Mm,
I
yeah.
hear, and I'm sure you do as well, Lily, every now and again, business owners, family owners particularly. but any business owner actually who
Mm,
gets a bit frustrated that that all the people aren't quite as enthusiastic as they are.
yeah.
Well,
Right.
they won't be.
Yeah.
It's a job
Mm,
for them,
mm,
and they might show up in a
yeah.
huge way every day. But what
Yeah.
are you expecting them to show up like you do?
Okay. Sure.
Because
Yeah.
they probably won't, or the
Yeah.
odd one will, but some
Sure.
won't.
Yeah.
Very ambitious people might,
Fair.
but there are definitely lots of people out there
Mm,
who go to work, do the job, get
right.
paid, go
Yeah.
home, and that's fine. That we all, as I always say, we all need those people in your business that are
Yeah.
happy to just come, do it,
Mm,
go, come,
mm,
do it, go. But
mm,
expecting them
mm,
to be as hardworking as you are and working on a Sunday or working of an evening, that's sometimes a trap
mm.
to fall into, I think.
Right. No, I'm with you. I think that people need to share the story and then see what happens. And then be
Yeah.
reasonable if that they might not all be as ambitious and as keen as the founder. But
Yeah,
no,
no, they won't be.
absolutely.
But I think still just showing, because I think particularly if your story is quite humbling. So particularly if a business did start off being,
Mm,
quite small and it's
mm,
quite humbling that
mm,
it's suddenly grown because you've had amazing, got an amazing customer or
yeah.
something happened. People
Mm,
really like that.
yeah.
That sort of success is one that I think people
Mm,
really lean
mm,
into,
yeah.
as
Can
opposed
be
to a sort of an
empowering.
overnight success, which
Yeah.
there are them.
Yeah.
But I think if you've got a business that's kind of grown and humbled
Mm,
along, if you like,
yeah.
and I think most people really enjoy that kind of success. They'd be really
Mm,
happy.
yeah.
One of my family run businesses that I work with, they started off in a bedroom. This husband and wife
Mm,
started off in a bedroom. Now
mm.
both the daughters work in the firm. The
Oh,
the, the
fab.
daughter's husbands work in the firm.
Yeah.
There's 200 people now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so
I mean, incredible, incredible
yeah,
for them as a what an impact
yeah.
that
What a
this couple have
legacy.
made.
The legacy as well, isn't it? I mean, for this family, the mum and dad, the founders, they're ready to retire now. So of
Okay.
course that can be
Mm,
quite tricky
yeah.
because you've obviously it's been their baby, and
Mm,
now other people are running it, the daughters and
yeah.
things. So there's all that to be. I've seen that quite tricky,
Right.
where
Yeah.
there's somebody who's probably of an older generation who's ready to retire, and
Mm,
then
mm,
navigating their exit.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet you work with quite a few
Yeah.
where you're navigating the exit
Absolutely.
of somebody, and
Mm,
where do the problems lie? I think it's
mm,
quite interesting. Is it with the person
mm,
leaving, or is it with the people taking over, or where's the fear coming from?
yeah.
It's all those things.
Yeah. Defo. It's just a transition that needs to get navigated with support because people really fumble through those things and then it can be so much smoother and even though I think an exit for a founder is a really challenging very emotional like particularly if that was a part of the whole family, that's a whole identity thing now that's being
Yeah,
could feel as though that's slipping away. um but what an incredible story that
yeah,
and how eggs for you to get to work with this family and that business.
yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely. Yeah, no, it's good. But like I say, but equally, I've got another one that springs to mind where there's two sons and a dad, and they don't get on. They're trying to navigate
mm,
it, but they don't really get on,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
is quite tricky, particularly for the other senior members on
yeah.
the board.
Defo, defo.
There's others. There's like who did I used to speak to on that team? I think he might be the sales manager or something, and he just used to
Mm,
feel like he was stuck in
mm,
between
yeah, no,
these two brothers
abs- absolutely.
and dad. It's
Yeah,
tricky. So it
very
isn't
tricky.
always
Not at all.
brilliant, is it?
No, no. I have some clients that will really straddle both those sides of some that actually work very well together and they're super, super proactive. and others that are really, they feel that they're in the eye of the storm, and other non-family members of staff are really signposting them like iceberg up ahead, let's not hit it,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
get some support now, or last quarter, please. And then they reach out to someone like me or someone like you to get to support them.
Definitely, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's good. And that's a positive, isn't it? Is to get support as well. Because I think so often
Mm,
if you can feel quite insular with a
yeah,
family and you're all trying to navigate it
absolutely.
yourselves, sometimes just bringing yourself out, having the courage to go and speak to someone like you
Mm,
who you can sort of share it all and it just,
mm, mm,
gives that space to actually
yeah.
have a almost a referee, really, somebody
Mm,
who's can help with those difficult conversations.
yeah,
So for me, it is a real positive that people take take those
yeah,
steps.
yeah. Sure. It's stepping out of the echo chamber and getting that third party perspective, an extra eye in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But Alison, I don't want to take up much more of your time because as we share with everybody, it is Sundays. People like us work on Sundays, just
Yeah.
for everybody listening. But I mean, it really sounds like transparency is really at the heart of it, setting those expectations, sharing the stories and knowing where the lines are of the different realms in family and business, and also just the strength of business and families and working together.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these insights with me and everybody else who listens. So
Oh, you're
thank you
so
so
welcome.
much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.